Okay, we are about to dive into one tiny, kind of weird detail from one of the Bible's most mysterious books. We're talking about a name, but it's not written on a crown or a banner. It's written on a thigh. And figuring out why it's there, well, that unlocks this whole hidden story about power, promises, and who really gets to be in on the secret.
So this is the big question, right? In this moment of ultimate victory, this divine warrior shows up and his most important title is written on his thigh. It just seems so strange, almost random, but as we're about to see, this placement is anything but an accident. It's a very deliberate symbol that connects this final epic battle to a really ancient, unbreakable promise.
And here's the verse itself, right out of the book of Revelation. You have this rider on a white horse showing up for the final climactic showdown. Now, the name itself, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, that's a huge declaration of power, no question. But it's the placement on the thigh, that's the real clue we're going to follow. It's like a key that opens up a much, much older story.
To really get why this name is so important, we have to understand who it's aimed at. See, this inscription isn't just a fancy title, it's a direct, public challenge in this massive, cosmic struggle for who's really in charge.
So the key here is this incredible contrast. On one side, the book describes this figure called the Beast, who's all about making these huge boasts and demanding that the entire world worship him. And then, in direct opposition, this rider appears. And his title isn't just a name, it's a verdict. It's basically a declaration that all other claims to power are officially and finally over.
So, how do we solve this mystery of the thigh? Well, to do that, we've got to jump in a time machine and go back thousands of years to the very first book of the Bible, Genesis. Because there's this ancient, really profound tradition hidden right there in plain sight.
In the ancient world, this was how you made a promise that you absolutely positively could not break. Forget a handshake, forget just saying, I swear. This was a binding covenant ritual. The act of putting a hand under the thigh, it wasn't just symbolic. It showed just how serious, how heavy the promise being made really was.
And we see this exact ritual play out with some of the biggest names in the Old Testament. Abraham has his most trusted servant Eliezer swear this way to secure the entire future of his family. Then, generations later, Jacob makes his own son Joseph take the exact same oath to make sure he's buried back in their homeland. This was not a common thing, it was a sacred act, saved for the most important promises you could imagine.
The symbolism here is just incredibly deep. The thigh was seen as the source of your descendants, your future, your entire lineage. So to swear an oath on the thigh was to bind that promise to your own authority and your family's future. You were pretty much saying, my entire legacy and every single person who comes from me stands as a guarantee for this oath. It's serious stuff.
So this leads us to a really fascinating question. If humans make these super serious binding oaths to a higher authority, what happens when the ultimate authority, God, wants to make an unbreakable promise? I mean, who can God swear by?
And the answer, according to the scriptures, is that God swears by the only authority high enough, himself. He doesn't need to put a hand under anyone's thigh because his own name, his own existence, is the ultimate guarantee. When God makes a promise, he is both the one swearing the oath and the absolute authority that backs it up.
Okay, so let's connect all the dots. We've got the thigh oath as his binding human promise, and we've got God's self-sworn oath as the ultimate, unbreakable promise. Now let's bring it all back to that rider in Revelation.
And this is where it all clicks into place. The location isn't random at all. Having the name King of Kings written on the thigh is like seeing God's own divine signature on an unbreakable promise. It's a visual symbol of God's own vow, his ancient covenant finally made visible for everyone to see in this climactic moment. It means this is an authority that is self-guaranteed, absolute, and deeply, deeply personal.
Which brings us to the final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle. Is this powerful sign meant for everyone on the battlefield to understand? Or is there a specific audience who gets the true hidden meaning behind it?
The way the source material explains it is like this. Think back to Abraham's servant, Eliezer. He was the only other person who was in on that sacred oath, right? In the same way, the true meaning of this divine sign on the thigh is really only visible to those who are already in that covenant relationship, the people the text calls the called, the chosen, and the faithful.
So, for everybody else caught up in this final battle, it might just look like the title of a powerful conqueror. But for those who are part of the story, for those who understand the ancient oath, it's the ultimate reassurance. They don't just see a name, They see the fulfillment of a deeply personal and unbreakable divine promise.
And this leaves us with a final, really powerful idea to think about. This story suggests that ultimate authority isn't always shouted from the rooftops or written on golden crowns for the whole world to see. Sometimes, the most important promises are written in a place that only those who share the secret, those who share the covenant, can truly recognize and understand.